Welcome, podcast fans. It's time for the What's Up Bro podcast show presented by J&J Production Studios, the home for all your entertainment needs. All kinds of great topics discussed every week, a variety of different themes offered, special guest appearances, prize giveaways, and so much more. Stay tuned. And now, here are your hosts, Sam Crow and Big Hoss.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Happy Saturday, one and all. Apologies, it's a bit later start tonight, but we have very good reason for that, which we're going to explain why in just a second. But just quickly, if you guys didn't catch last night's episode, it is available. Check us out, linktree.com/J_J Production Studios. All of the podcast streaming services where episodes are found. New episode there, as well as Thursday night as well. You guys also, if you don't remember, Big Hoss is not joining us. He is on vacation, so it is just me. However, this evening, and we did post this was late because we weren't sure if it was going to happen, but I am not alone tonight. We did advertise this. I apologize in advance because we had some scheduling conflict, but she is here, and we're going to get our applause here for that there. Welcoming her for the first time, we have joining us live, of course, quite a bit ahead of time in Thailand there, which I had to get my calculations because I'm not very good with math right off the top, so I had to make sure I knew the time zones there, but we got it nailed down. Joining us here, the one and only, and welcome to the show, Verca Partikova. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hand. Thank you. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing thanks. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you had quite a bit of things happening lately, so we're glad you could join us here. Really excited for this, to get to know you a little bit more and talk to you and share you with our audience here, hopefully to perhaps inspire some folks there. We're going to talk a little bit about your business, your endeavors there, the things that you have going on. There's so much interesting things to talk about, which is why we want to just jump in here. So how we typically do this, we always ask our guests who are new here, and I have already read your bio. I know a lot of that stuff, and we have talked before. But for the new person that might know you, just a little bit of detail. Who is Verca? Tell us a little bit about your background, about who you are, and then we're going to get into all that fun stuff. So who is Verca? Tell us a little bit about yourselves, if you would please.
Oh, sure. Okay, so it's pronounced Verca. I'm Czech,
Verca.
so there's
Apologies.
No worries.
I never know. I have
know.
some Czech friends. They try to help me explain. I try to get it right. So I'm Polish too, so I understand. But yeah.
No, it's fine. So it's a shortcut from Veronica actually, but I don't really like people calling me that. So
understand.
It's Verca. That's how I also like teach everyone who speaks English to like call me that. So they suffer.
That's okay. As long as we know, I'll get it. Verca. Okay, Verca. Please, yes.
Right. So I'm a martial artist. I study, train, coach Kung Fu, and also I'm a professional MMA fighter. Muay Thai fighter based in Thailand. So I've been living in Asia for the last, over 10 years now, 11 years maybe. Okay. So I spent 8 years in Hong Kong, where I moved to because of Kung Fu, and then I moved over here to Thailand because of MMA, and that's where I am now.
Wow, that's so how old were you when you first started training, when you got interested in martial arts?
I was 11.
Okay.
I was 11. Basically, I was like around 5 years old when my parents told me. Well, I told my parents that I want to train, but they said it's not for girls, that I'm supposed to dance, so they put me into ballet instead. But then they told me if I have like all A's at school, that they can put me into like a martial arts class. So I did for a few years because I was a nerd. And then they were like, okay. So then I started with karate.
Nice. Okay.
So I was 11.
Now you were born in the Czech Republic, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So you grew up there, and then when you reached that age, then you relocated to Hong Kong, right? If my chronologically is correct.
So now I'm 36 years old. So okay. I moved to Hong Kong when I was 26, 25.
Okay.
And I first worked there as an English teacher, and then I basically got into a PhD program, so I studied my degree over there.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's how I got in.
That's very interesting. That's a very adventurous type of journey there, which is awesome. I mean, again, I read through it, and there's a lot of interesting facts in your bio there, and of course, following the the page and everything that you do there, which we had want to talk about. But there, I will say, there's times when I see stories like that when people that have that drive that really want to chase their dream and they literally travel the world to do so is very inspirational for that. And then again, now you're in. So now you're in Thailand. Was it strictly for MMA or was it for anything else specifically? Is that what drew you to Thailand from Hong Kong?
Yeah, so I was training and teaching kung fu in Hong Kong, and I didn't want to be one of those like coaches who never fought or who was never
Mm-hmm.
hit and just like teaching like theory and dancing.
Yep.
So I started doing some like sparring. So I went to like I don't know sanda and boxing to just like cross train, and then I fell in love with MMA. So I came to Thailand for a week just to train,
Okay.
and then I was looking for like ways how to come here. So I basically totally like changed my job, my industry, so I could work online.
Uh huh.
That took like almost like 5 years, and then during COVID,
Goodness.
I was traveling home for Christmas, and then I was going back to Hong Kong, and I had a uh, short trip to Thailand as when I got stuck here. And
Oh
then when
right.
I was
Okay.
here, I was thinking, okay, so now I know that if I stay in Hong Kong, it's not like if I'm serious with my MMA career, I have to move here. I have to move to
Mm-hmm.
Thailand. So then within a month, I went back to Hong Kong. I packed everything. I sold things. I took my dog, and then I relocated to Thailand for MMA.
Hmm. Wow, that you really give new meaning to the term uprooting your life just to which I mean, not a bad thing. Obviously, you're finding your niche and you're finding things that you're chasing what you're passionate about. Obviously, so it's not unprecedented where folks just say it's kind of like that old adage when a lot of these kids like high school they say I'm taking a year off just to backpack through Europe just because I feel like it. I have no goal, no direction. I'm just trying to find myself. You had a plan, you knew what you wanted, and you were chasing that, and I like the drive there, the commitment of you knew like with MMA specifically that if you were going to commit, you made a full transitional move because you wanted to
Mm.
ensure that you could commit to it, that it wasn't just you were half-heartedly doing it or just very haphazardly jumping in. You were fully putting your sights on that, which is impressive. I mean, it's really hard to commit with a lot of things, and I can say specifically in the culture here we have in the West, obviously, there's a lot there's a lot of folks that they start off with the drive, they start off with the ambition, but then there's really not much follow through because either it becomes too
Mm.
difficult or it's kind of like the little kid who grows up. I want to start ballet, then they want to take karate, then they want to take soccer, then they want to take X, Y, and Z. I was never
Yeah.
one of those. Typically, I didn't have a lot of interest, so I wasn't driving my parents crazy with. I was changing every month to something else, but that just
Mhm.
seems to be culture there. But and you in investing and doing all these things, especially with the MMA. What if now again, not having experience before you did that, I'm guessing what is it about that really, compared to, let's say, traditional martial arts when you started doing it, was really
Mhm.
something that kind of captivated you, I guess is the word, once you started doing it? What is it that hooked you that really got you wanting to commit to it?
I guess I was always a fighter. Like even when I was training karate, I was always into kumite rather than
Mm-hmm.
kata. Like that
Yep.
means the fighting discipline rather than like the forms.
Yep.
And and then when I switched to kung fu, I didn't really like sanda, so I kind of like stopped fighting
Mm-hmm.
until I got to MMA when I like remembered like, wow, this is actually who I am. And I guess it's like the exchange, it's fun, it's playful, it's like very natural, it's like very primal thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like there is lots of taboo about or not taboo, like people think it's very aggressive, and that you have
Right.
to be like, I don't know, mean, or lots of
Yeah.
media puts this kind of like image on fighters, but in fact it's not really like that. Like of course you find people who are not nice to be around. But
Yes.
usually the higher you get, my
Right.
experience is like the quality of people is like better, and they're really like high quality people to be around, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very inspiring.
Okay. No, that's very good. And I want to ask you this because we did have previously we had through a friend of mine actually his wife is a professional MMA fighter, and I asked this question when
Hmm.
we had her on. So I'd like to ask you because you're in the same realm here, and I
Hmm.
don't mean this to sound a negative. I'm just out of curiosity, especially because what was predominantly known as a male-dominated sport.
Hmm.
As you coming in as a female there, did you find any difficult challenges compared to what people would say? Listen, like, as you said, your parents said, well, it's, martial arts and stuff, it's not for girls. I'm not sure if you had any experiences where you had any, not negativity necessarily, but was it difficult for you coming into MMA from the female perspective, trying to obviously you want to do similar things that the men do. I mean, I don't know if that's how when you weigh that factor, but did you find it a lot more challenging than, say, if you were a male coming into a male sport? What is, and I don't know because I've never done it, so I'm not sure what the pressure is like. But what did you find personally when you started to go down that journey to get into the MMA as a female in a male world, basically, if you
Right.
will?
Um, well, for sure, you can find people in MMA that look at you differently because you're a woman or because you're a girl,
Mm-hmm.
or that you are, like weaker or smaller, and
Right.
it's not nice.
Mm-hmm.
And but to me, it was, I guess, kind of surprising because in MMA or in not only MMA, but I don't know, like wrestling, boxing, BJJ, all these things, where
Mm-hmm.
you spar in every session and you have to like be like very practical. It's not just like theory. You always like put yourself against the others, and
Mm-hmm.
so I felt like that the differences between like being male and female is not that like highlighted as in
Okay.
traditional martial arts,
Sure.
where everything was kind of in theory. So you don't really like prove yourself against the
Mm-hmm.
others. You don't really like test yourself. So there
Okay.
are also lots of people, right, in traditional martial arts, or let's say in kung fu or in karate. In karate less, but in kung fu that's more common, right? When you don't really spar
Mm-hmm.
or don't really like fight or like roll with others,
Right.
where people just base their hierarchy on the fact that they say, "Oh, I'm Sifu, so you have to respect
Yeah.
me," but it's not that they actually like beat your ass, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
the fact it isn't there, like the proof isn't there. So like now when I go to a class and I roll with others, it doesn't really matter that I'm woman and they are men. Either
Mm-hmm.
I'm better or they are better, or today I was better and yesterday they were better, and we help each other. So it's like it's not that that obvious to me, like the
Okay.
difference. And then other thing is also like when I coach, for
Mm-hmm.
sure, there will be always like men coming forward and like saying things like, "Oh no, you're like wrong," or it won't work, or
Right.
I know
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
because when I see red, I know how to fight, and
Yeah.
yes.
Sure.
So I think this is like one of the main differences
Okay.
that I'm aware of. But yeah, otherwise not that much. There are of course like differences in terms of like physiology, like
Right.
um, that I'm weaker than like a guy that would be like same height, same weight as me, or like when I cut weight, it's
Mm-hmm.
more difficult for me than like if a guy cuts weight and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And like I said, I would always look at it myself. And again, I have no experience for MMA. I'm not built to fight there. I respect those, of course, that do it. But it's just I look at it as the same path like in the traditional martial arts where the journey is for individuals. It's not to compete. It's not to compare yourself to somebody else. You're on your own journey to discover what you can do and
Mm,
what your gifts are. Because the old saying too is trying to compare yourself to someone else. There's always somebody who's better. There's somebody who's maybe trained more. Like you can't always compare yourself to somebody else. You're trying to build your own journey. Like for me, I've been training for a long time. My goal was always, and these were sort of stumbling blocks for me because there were times when training would get difficult. I would start to crack under the pressure of I should be at a certain point. I see others that maybe start after me that are surpassing me, and it was growing frustration of, why am I not getting from this tier to the next tier? Like I don't feel like I'm going anywhere. But then I recognize and say, you know what, everybody learns differently, and I can't compare myself to someone else. It's just not my time there yet. And I've had teachers tell me too, to try to be encouraged, like, and I say too, even now after all these years, like my goal is just the knowledge itself. So no matter how quickly it comes, and I try to do better at supporting others that say, hey, you know what, if maybe they learn a bit faster than I do, they deserve to, get to that next spot. I don't want to be a stumbling block because I'm so being selfish of it should really be me and not you. So it's really a personal thing. And ultimately, as I learned too, is I'm trying to better myself. I can't control somebody else. I'm just on this journey to see what I can do, what I'm capable of. What can I want to push myself to see what are my limits, and can I go past that? So it's kind of a similar, train of thought. I can see that. But now when you mentioned, and again, is a personal question there, wanting to, talking to your parents, wanting to train, when you hear that, and you may have heard this even growing up too, but when you hear that phrase, oh, it's not for girls, it's strictly a boy thing, now again, obviously there's different generation, different times, and there's different philosophies on that now. But at that time, someone growing up, how difficult is it when you knew you wanted to train, martial arts, but you get the negativity of, well, it's not, girls don't do this. This is strictly a boy thing. You should be doing dance or something a little more of the dainty nature. Like, what is the initial thought, or how do you feel like when you hear that? Like, maybe family, friends, or you're looking for encouragement, but yet you're not getting that right off the cuff. Is it difficult? Is it hard? Like, how do you process that?
I guess it wasn't really like my case that much, because for me the ballet was a thing because it's run in our family. My mom, she danced ballet when she was a kid, and my sister too. So that was kind of like, oh, okay, so you want to move around, so then you go and you do ballet or you do gymnastics. So it wasn't really like, oh, you're a girl, so you cannot do this because you are not a boy. A little bit like, because they just wanted me to, to do something more like girlish. But like once I started, it wasn't really like on the table that I'm a girl and I can't do that or this or that.
Okay.
I guess with my family, it's just like, if I have a fight, then I don't call them with a video on. It's always just a voice, so they don't see my face.
Right.
Or like I don't really like tell them like if I'm injured or not.
Right.
So they don't really get too sensitive about it. But
sure.
Yeah, that's it.
How I was gonna say that how do they now? I'm assuming you obviously they knew and you told them that your move was going to prompt this journey. How did they feel about the MMA track? I mean, obviously I'm sure they know about it, but what was the initial response when you said, "Hey, I'm chasing my dream. This is where I want to go next because I want to do MMA"? Was there any obviously maybe worry, concern? Obviously family always does that, but what was it like when you broached that subject, which I'm assuming you did because obviously they knew you relocated too, but what was that like for you?
Yeah, so yeah, they know because I've been here for like 3 years, and I actually have just relocated again 2 weeks ago. So I like completely like changed the location where I'm at, and I changed the team, changed the gym, and like left my friends there. So I kind of started over again.
Again, wow, yeah, huh?
And then so when I relocated here, I guess they know that this is what I need to do to be happy. So they are they are supportive.
That's
yeah,
good.
they're supportive in their own way. Yeah.
Well, good. No, that's wonderful. And like I said, for me, I'm always curious because you hear stories where everybody has their own, there's a response to it, and obviously at the end of it, I feel very similar as you do. I want to do certain things for me just because I'm trying to discover myself or figure out what the adventure's like, but you always like to have that support, and I know like I've had adventures where I don't want to say my family didn't support me, but there was confusion maybe, or maybe wasn't quite the understanding of they didn't know why I was taking in adventures for certain things, which again, they never tried to detract me from doing it. It's just, it was, the basic line was, we just don't understand it. Like, it doesn't make sense to us. It might make sense for you, and it did, because that was my journey, but, they were still supportive. But sometimes it can also be misconstrued where, if it's taken the wrong way, you feel like, oh, there's no support there, which fortunately for me, I guess it wasn't that way. It was just, I couldn't help them understand it because it didn't mean as much to them as it did for me. So it's really hard to, explain that to someone else who's not in your shoes, essentially.
Yeah,
So that's a wonderful thing, though. I mean, now, like I said, the journey it's incredible how, you have such determination for this. You went off, and I mean, I don't even, it's, I'm sure people have done it. I'm just one of those, like, I haven't really been far out of the country myself. I haven't even traveled outside there, so I don't have quite that much of an adventurous side, but I often wonder, like, to be that dedicated to leave your home, that you've known, and to, traveling to Hong Kong, to train there, and now in Thailand there, obviously, for another journey, which, you're still able to carry those things with you, but, and especially at a relatively younger age-ish. I don't like to think I'm that old, but I'm not as young as I used to be, however, but sort of in that bridge gap. So, mid-30s coming to 40, I'm like, I'm trying to get old gracefully. I don't think of it as old, so I still feel like I have time to to explore there. As much as some people agree with me, some people say, no, you got to acknowledge the age part, but age is just a state of mind anyway. But, when you travel and, you've built such a unique lot of programs that you have online, which we're going to get to here in a second, because I want to have everybody talk about how, and initially how I found you actually too, which is what we're going to cover too, but it's really just inspiring there. And let me just say, if you could say that to somebody, let's say someone would say to you, what, I have this dream, I have this goal, I want to chase it, but I'm not sure, I'm kind of nervous. I don't know how I would do it. Like, say, even like if it was a younger self for you, if you had to go back and say it, what would you tell us, a young person that says, what is it like? What do I do? I want to chase my dream, but I don't feel sure of myself. What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, you will never be sure.
True. Very true.
That doesn't change. I mean, for me, it was always about the decision, so I decided I will do that, but it doesn't mean that I believed in myself that I could. So let's say, like, I don't really have, like, much of a self-esteem or self-confidence. For me, it was always like, okay, I decide this is what that I will do next.
Okay.
And then I put everything into that and try not to think too much about how much it will cost me in terms of, like, sacrifices. So, like, let's say when I moved from Hong Kong to Thailand, I put everything into the plan, how to move things, how to sell things, how to get my dog here, and so on.
Yep.
But I didn't give myself the permission to think about that I'm actually losing everything I built up there, and, like, my reputation as, like, the white foreigner, a white woman training their, coaching their kung fu as, like, one of very few people, and, like, all the friends and all the kung fu masters that I known, and so yeah, I guess it's just like, if you follow your dreams, it doesn't mean that you won't be anxious and you won't be depressed and you won't be, like, sad, or it won't be hard. It will be. It's just that you, like, just follow the decision, the discipline. It's not about the motivation. The motivation is, like, very short-term thing.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be right decision, It's just about the movement forward. You can change it always. It's just about not being stuck on the same place.
Yeah, that's really, I like that too, because that's something I wrestle with and I struggle too, because I think for me it was the fear of making those decisions. I was under constant scrutiny with that, or under the microscope. Somebody would say to me, what are you doing? Why did you do this? And to be truthfully honest, sometimes I make those decisions. I don't know. I was passionate. I was trying to continue to move forward. Same thing. I didn't want to be stuck in that rut and be held back there. You got to have room to spread your wings and fly. If you pardon the plagiarism. I mean,
it doesn't have to make sense. And for me, MMA didn't make sense in the beginning. I came to Thailand for a week. I was training here, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I should move here. And I was like, but why? I have my kung fu dream. I'm doing this. I'm living over there. I have my career there. I have, like, everything. And then it slowly started to make sense, like I was like, oh, maybe I can be an amateur fighter, or maybe I can turn pro, or maybe I can actually have a career in
Yeah,
fighting. But in the beginning, it didn't make sense. I
sure.
was just like following my gut feeling, and the fact that it actually made me happy and like
Yeah,
feel alive.
yeah. Well, and I think we can agree too. Like for anybody, that's a large part of anything that we do or anybody does.
Yeah,
You.
yeah.
I was always a big believer. Now, my parents always instilled this on myself and my younger sister growing up. You do what you have to do. I watched my parents struggle. My parents took care of us. My dad worked. My mom stayed home, took care of us. They did what they had to do, and as becoming an adult, I learned that there were responsibilities and things I had to do. But at the same time, I also told myself I can't lose the dream though either. I know people
Mm,
tell you, they always say, "Well, no, but not everybody gets to live out their dreams." That's true, and this is where I struggle with some friends who were trying to help, but it was the negative approach. But I'm like, I still have to be me, and I feel like there's certain things that make me happy. Do I think I'm going to achieve everything? Absolutely not. I'm not going to be delusional and say, well, I'm owed or guaranteed anything, but I want to at least know that I put the effort, that I tried it, because at least I can go back and say, it might not have worked out, but I gave it my best effort, as opposed to saying, oh, well, I didn't even bother to try at all, because I couldn't live with myself for that, because that's a wasted opportunity. So, like,
mm,
even for you, let's just say, and I'm not wishing this to you, but let's just say hypothetically, like, if you did this MMA journey, let's, for whatever reason, it doesn't work out, and time goes by down the road, you're not going to look back, even if it shouldn't pan out the way you thought it might. You would at least be happy that you tried it, as opposed to say, you know what, I was too afraid, I wasn't even going to attempt it. You'd rather know that you tried it and didn't make it, as opposed to just saying, you know what, I let it slip through my fingers, it was an opportunity that was lost, right? So, and I think that's a big thing that scares people is they're just too, they overthink it, and they're just too afraid to even attempt anything, because
mm,
right away it's, I'm going to fail right off the bat. If you let that in your mindset, you're going to fail. It's the same thing with training. And I told people over the years, when I trained, I've seen so many students come in and out of the dojo where, you know, they're gung-ho, they're headstrong, they are eager, their first day training, their first week training, they are ready to go. Maybe 2 to 3 months into it, now the attendance starts to waver a little bit. Now they're not showing up. Now they're getting to a point where they're like, you know what? Now it's not all fun and games. Now it's getting to be challenging. And usually at that point, I always would talk and say, "How do you feel now?" Not because I'm trying to be encouraging, but it's not quite where you thought when you first started. Now the early days are over. Now you have to sweat, you have to bend and grind, and a lot of
mm,
times they fall away, they go and they don't come back. And so, but again, it's motivation, it's what you're passionate about. And I've had some people say, I tried it and I was an idea, but it wasn't for me, and that's, it's not necessarily a failure. You just recognize that you're not built for that. It's just not what you thought it was. So that's nothing wrong with
mm,
that. But the key thing I agree too is you have to understand there's always going to be that fear there. There's always going to, if you're your own worst enemy, you're going to hold yourself back. So, I think that's a great motivation there. But again, even the move from Hong Kong there to Thailand, you're still moving forward. And as far as we can tell I've been keeping up with things there, you seem to be doing very well. So I don't think there's really been any
mm.
major speed bumps that you had so far, unless we missed something. So, and I wish the best there. I'm not obviously. I hope things go well, because you really do inspire with your message there, which I always love to learn that myself, because I need others to inspire me. Because again, I get caught up in the everyday stuff that sometimes I start to lose the dream, and then it becomes such a negative where I'm like, what's the point sometimes? And I don't want to keep going that way, because it's just a huge negative in my mindset. Even now training, I still train every week I can get out there. And I have
Mm.
family saying, well, how do you do it now? I'm pushing closer to 40, obviously. Well, it's not impossible. Obviously, I'm not going to train like I did when I was 20. Obviously, there's some change now with, I have to know my limitations getting older and stuff. There's going to be, I train with a lot of guys who are probably half my age now. And it doesn't scare me, but I also recognize, I can't move the same way they did. And I usually tease them with that, like, they'll say to me, I do something, I said, listen, I've been doing this a long time, and I said, I'm not as young as you. I was at your age at one time, but I can't do it anymore. So you'll have to forgive me for not moving as fast or I might not be able to take some of the throws you want to give me. I can usually take pretty good for that, but some of the younger guys and gals are hungrier and a little more ferocious with doing that, which I don't mind